to call this meeting to order. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on a bright and sunny Monday morning. And I will, as I mentioned, I'll call the meeting to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest from any committee members? I'm not seeing any hands, or that's great. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do for the start of the meeting is I'm going to look to our new interim economic director, Frank Mealy, to give us a bit of a bio on himself. I know Harry put out our CIO put out a great information email to everybody on Frank, and I have him live right beside me here. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Frank for the time being. Frank? You're muted, Frank. Yeah. There you go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sherman. And welcome, everybody, and good morning. Well, a little bit of a background about myself. I grew up in Niagara Falls, went to University of Waterloo and graduated in urban planning, and my postgraduate was in economic development. So since I've practiced economic development and planning in 6 different municipalities, and now, lucky 7, I'm here in Grimsby, back in where I started in Niagara region. I've also worked about 10 years in the development sector, and in the development sector, time is money. That's the biggest thing I learned in that sector. I developed and implemented several economic development strategies over the years, and I was a team lead in attracting a hospital recently just completed in my community in Vaughan. Also attracting major infrastructure investments, including the 427 extension and the subway to our community. So that took a lot of time and effort and collaboration of a lot of stakeholders, as you can imagine. Also was responsible for putting together an award-winning marketing campaign for 13 years. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it was the City Above Toronto, a series of radio ads that took place over a period of 13 years during the springtime to attract and more importantly, not only to attract investment, but was also to create a buzz in the community, to talk about ourselves and to feel proud about our community, that we have a lot of things to offer. So it was more of a public relation concept with an economic development undertone. So why did I choose Grimsby, and why am I here? Well, I have to be honest, I wanted to work with Harry and his young team. I think you've got a really winning organization here, and Harry is well respected in the field. He's one of the best CIOs in the country, and I wanted to be here with him and learn more, believe it or not. Also, Grimsby has got development potential. And wanted to be in here. I mean, my understanding, and I've done some math here, but you have in the next 3 to 5 years over $1 billion worth of building permits. We need to make sure that's sustainable and developed in a proper manner. So I'm here to help you in achieving that. And of course, Grimsby has got one of the best quality of life in Niagara region. And, you've got a lot to be proud of. Just a quick, I'm sure that let's see here, where am I? Yes, the past 3 weeks that I've been here, I've been doing a little bit of work here and there. And one of the things that I've been focusing on has been the development concierge service. That is basically the go-between industry and our staff. And we expedited a 9-month-old building permit. He was this medical clinic was extremely frustrated, and we cleared it up, and they just got their building permits. So that was a good win for us as a community. And dealing with 3 other files to expedite the development process. and hopefully, ensuring continuous people improvement in our city hall here, our town hall. I've also done some corporate visits, had several meetings with some local businesses for strategic alliance opportunities with the Toronto firm that I've put together. Hopefully that will come to be. We also got I'm working with a new investor, a software developer from Toronto, that wishes to relocate in Grimsby. This lead came from a friend of mine in the Ontario Centers of Excellence. A good referral. And I'm working with them, and they're going to be actually coming to live in Grimsby, and hopefully find an office building here to expand their business. Finally, I guess I've been meeting with a few local community organizations, such as the Chamber of Commerce, the DIA, the library. I went to see that beautiful library, by the way. Also met with some people out in New York region, and of course the Niagara Workforce Planning Board. So been a little bit active, and I've been enjoying touring around town as well, and getting to know Grimsby a little bit more too. And it's a wonderful community. Before we start with the Niagara Workforce Planning Board presentation on the town of Grimsby economic analysis, I'd really like to acknowledge the commitments and hard work done by Ken Schulten from Niagara Region and Vivian and her team at the planning board. And they've done just a wonderful job in putting all this together since the early summer. In addition, I really like to thank the advisory committee, as well as the working group of the economic development working group, which has in essence successfully completed a major milestone in publishing the results of the BRNE report, which we'll go very quickly through today. I think it's their countless hours of support that have laid the path for a stronger base for economic development strategy. And I look forward to working with these great volunteers, including Alejandra, Richard, Mike, and Ken, of course. So, Mr. Chairman, without further delay, I really like to introduce our two presenters this morning from the Niagara Workforce Planning Board, Vivian Kinnaird, and she is the CEO of the organization, and Thalia Simplonius, along with Ken Schulten. They were responsible for laying down the first fundamental piece of our economic development strategy. So,
sorry, I apologize for interrupting. Just have to take care of a little bit of business first.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yep. No, I should have picked up on this a little bit sooner. But yeah, what I'm looking for from the members of GDAC, a resolution resolved that the November 8th, 2021 Grimsby Economic Development Committee agenda be approved. And I look to members of the committee to move and second that. I get a mover and a seconder for that. Richard, to move it. Seconder, Ali, great. I'll take a vote on that. All in favor to move the agenda, to approve the agenda, sorry. Great, that's approved. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Frank, I apologize.
All right, so back to Vivian and Thea.
Okay, thank you very much. Peter, would it be possible for you to let Thalia host the meeting now so that she can share her the slide deck? We have a slide deck.
She should have that capability.
Oh, she has that already. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I should have asked that before. Okay, so good morning, Mayor and councillors and members of GDAC. It's good to see everybody this morning. Thank you very much for giving us the time to make this presentation to you. As Frank said, my name is Vivian Kinnaird, and I lead the team that is the Niagara Workforce Planning Board. And I'm joined by Thalia Simplonius, who is a project manager, but is also our research lead at NWPB. Thalia has worked on the detail of a lot of the work that we'll be presenting today. You should have received, I'm hoping you've received a copy of this presentation that we're going to go through this morning. And it's also a high-level overview of a more comprehensive report that has also been submitted to Harry and the team and Ken at Grimsby. And I'm sure if that hasn't been shared with you, it will be shared with you shortly. As Frank has indicated, this work was part of the first stage of taking a look at what information would be useful to lay down the foundation for Grimsby's economic development planning. So we're pleased to be able to help collate the information that we're going to be presenting today. Thalia, I'm going to hand over to Thalia, who will take you through the presentation, and we have allowed ample time at the end for questions and comments. So over to you, Thalia.
Awesome, thanks, Vivian. So today I'm going to be taking you on, as Vivian said, an overview of some of the data that is in the full report. The report is much more comprehensive. There's a lot of information in there. So today we'll be sharing some highlights of it. First, I'll be going through some background on the data that we examined, some of the data sources and terminology that we use throughout the report, and that I'll be referring to today. Then I'll be providing some high-level findings, and then at the end we have time for some questions as well. So what data did we examine? So before we even dive into that, I want to outline some of the project goals that we had. So our first step was to examine the Niagara Region Economic Development's 5-year strategy, which is built around 3 key sectors. And then we examined Hamilton Economic Development's action plan, which focuses on 8 key sectors. So after that review, we examined how Grimsby aligns with these strategies in terms of its sector strengths. The overall goal here was to provide data that can be used to inform and support the development of an economic development strategic plan. So that's kind of where our work is coming from. The data that we explored and that I'll be focusing on today are demographic insights, just so we can kind of get a lay of the land on Grimsby's population, in addition to workforce migration patterns, so labor mobility. So where are Grimsby residents working and what work are they doing, and sector strengths. Now, before I dive into any of the data, I want to note that the employment and job count data from 2020 likely reflect pandemic impacts, so please keep that in mind as well. The data might not reflect what we would typically expect to see outside of pandemic years. In terms of data sources, we pulled from a variety of different sources, the first being the 2016 census. This gives us a nice outline of data for Grimsby. We also pulled from MC Analyst, which is a gold standard tool. It pulls data from a variety of sources, including the previous 3 census data, National Household Survey data, Labor Force Survey, a whole bunch of sources, and we use it to estimate data like job counts and wages for a given geography. We also use Canadian Business Counts, which is another Statistics Canada product. They're produced semi-annually, and you can use these data to compare the numbers of businesses across industries and also across different geographies. We also used intercensal population estimates, which also are produced by Statistics Canada, to get an estimate of population growth or change over time. And then finally, we used data from the COVID-19 Business Impact Survey, which was conducted by the Niagara Economic Rapid Recovery Team. In terms of terminology that will be referenced to frequently throughout this morning and in the report as well, I wanted to go over location quotients. So location quotients tell us about the relative concentration of jobs in one geography compared to another. So here we can look at the relative concentration of jobs in an industry in Grimsby relative to that concentration across Ontario. Generally speaking, location quotients that are greater than 1 are high and demonstrate sectors providing goods and services that are meeting the local needs, and likely also exporting those goods and services since it has enough to support the local base. A location quotient of 1 demonstrates the sector is exactly meeting the needs of its community, and a location quotient less than 1 means that the sector is not yet meeting local demand and is likely having to import services to meet that demand. And just as some examples, because you'll see some pretty high location quotients today, and then also location quotients that are below 1. Employers like 40 Creek Distillery are housed in a sector that has a very high location quotient, which means these businesses are meeting local demand. But as you know, they also export goods outside of Grimsby as well. And then employers in sectors with lower location quotients could be businesses like local veterinary services. They're likely not exporting services as the overall sector is lower than 1. So that's just to give you a picture of what we mean by location quotients, as it'll be coming up quite a bit today. So first we'll go through some demographic insights and workforce migration patterns. This is particularly important as Grimsby's geography creates the potential for economic development relationships in both Niagara and Hamilton. You'll see that although Grimsby is part of the regional municipality of Niagara, its commuter flow actually ties it to the Hamilton census metropolitan area. So that's important when we consider things like employment. This identity creates unique opportunities to align, obviously, to the priorities of both Niagara and Hamilton as well. So in terms of Grimsby's population, here we have a graph outlining historical population counts for Grimsby. As we can see, Grimsby's 2020 population stood at just over 29,000 individuals. 2020, as you'll notice, saw very little population increase between 2019 and 2020, likely due to the general COVID-19 pandemic disrupting movement of people into and out of Niagara. Between 2016 and 2020, Grimsby's population increased by about 4.2%. Niagara's population increased by 4.9% during that time, and Hamilton's increased by about 5.3% during that time. However, when we look at the more long-term historical trends, we see that Grimsby's population has seen an increase of about 1.5%, whereas Niagara has seen an average increase of 0.7%. When we consider kind of the more demographic breakdowns of Grimsby's population, these data are pulled from the 2016 census, so will be updated with the 2021 census data, which will be coming out eventually. Very much looking forward to these data coming out. It'll be interesting to see what has changed. But that being said, the latest detailed demographic data show that Grimsby's population is comparatively younger than what we see compared to the region as a whole. So the median age in Grimsby in 2016 was 43.6 years old, and Niagara's median age was 45.7 years old, so relatively younger. We also see that Grimsby's population houses a larger proportion of people under the age of 39 than we see in Niagara as a whole. However, it's also important to note that 25% of Grimsby's population is aged 60 years and older as well. So you have, two different groups of individuals here, which will be noted later on in the presentation as well when we talk about some of the sector strengths and unique strengths that Grimsby has. Next, we have commuter flow. So again, these data are pulled from the 2016 census. This map here is showing you of the 14,305 employed Grimsby residents, according to that census, where do they go to work? So we can see about 2,705 individuals live in Grimsby and remain there to work. The largest portion of people commute over to Hamilton. So this is why Grimsby is tied to Hamilton's census metropolitan area. We do have insights on the types of work these individuals are doing. We see that people tend to commute for jobs in education, law, social, community, and government services, business, finance, and administration, management roles, and then trades, transport, and equipment operators as well. So those are the top occupations we see people commuting to Hamilton for, in addition to their 2020 inflation-adjusted incomes too. I see we have a question as well.
Yeah, I just wondered, do we have data, is there data on the number, the income per household, whether it's split between one or two individuals?
Yeah, that would be, yeah, in the census data, we would have that, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so now we'll move into some of the sector strengths that we see in Grimsby. And just as a refresh, here's where we look at how Grimsby's sector strengths align with both Niagara Region and Hamilton's economic development strategies. These data are pulled from MZ Analyst. That's the tool that estimates job counts from a variety of different sources, and then Canadian Business Counts, which gives us employer counts for Grimsby by industry. So I won't go into too much detail here, but I did want to just refresh on the two plans that we reviewed. The first was Niagara Region Economic Development's 5-year strategy. This plan is formulated around 3 key pillars, one of which is manufacturing, agribusiness, and tourism, with sub areas of focus within each of those 2. And then we reviewed Hamilton Economic Development's action plan as well, which focuses on 8 key pillars. The first being agriculture, advanced manufacturing, creative cultural industries, finance, insurance, and real estate, again, with some areas of focus within each of these pillars. And then the last 4 pillars of focus are goods movement, ICT and digital media, life sciences, and tourism. So when we look at Grimsby's areas of strength, these were sectors where we saw location quotients, that were meeting and exceeding local demand. So fairly high location quotients. The list I'll be going through today is not an exhaustive list of all the areas of strength. Those are all outlined in the report, but these are some highlights of sectors we wanted to share today. So the first 2 fall within kind of a manufacturing category. The first is beverage manufacturing, which would house employers like breweries, wineries, and distilleries. We see here they have a location quotient of 9.68. So businesses, or the number of jobs in Grimsby within this sector, is almost 10 times more concentrated than what we see in Ontario as a whole. There were 268 jobs here, carried by 2 establishments. Advanced manufacturing, general purpose machinery would house employers doing work like pump and compressor manufacturing, material handling equipment manufacturing, any type of packaging machinery manufacturing equipment. Those kinds of businesses fall within this sector. And we see their location quotient is 4.29. So again, pretty highly concentrated in Grimsby with 105 jobs and 7 establishments. One thing to note here is that these sectors are pretty strong, but they're also based on a small number of employers. So it could be important to engage closely given the small number of employers that are really carrying these 2 industries. The next couple areas of strength are full service restaurants and limited service eating places. So this would include your typical restaurants, but also coffee shops, fast food restaurants, ice cream parlors, takeout restaurants. This sector has a location quotient of 1.11 with 526 jobs and 59 establishments. We'll note that this is Grimsby's largest tourism supporting sector, but it houses jobs that are likely part-time or part-year employment, as the average annual income for a full-time equivalent employee is just under $20,000. A second area of strength here is traveler accommodations. So this would be like hotels. A location quotient of 1.26 with 78 jobs in 2020 and then 3 establishments here. The last kind of area of strength I'll highlight here is goods movement. And within this sector here, we saw 2 subsectors that were fairly strong here. So the first is general freight trucking. This includes businesses that do both local or long distance trucking. They would ship things like containers or bulk mail. That falls into these establishments. The sector has a location quotient of 2.25 with 308 jobs in in 2020, and then 44 establishments. Specialized freight trucking would be employers that are shipping products like bulk liquids or dry materials, automotive carriers, livestock trucking, that falls into this more specialized category. And they have a location quotient of 2.82, 104 jobs and 11 establishments. What's notable here is that the sector aligns fairly well with the City of Hamilton's priority in goods movement. They have that pillar specifically targeted to this. Given Grimsby's location and some of these strengths, that could be well positioned to leverage the road component of that strategy that Hamilton has. We also highlight a variety of unique strengths in the larger report. Here I'm going to focus on healthcare and social assistance. There are two sectors within this kind of overall area that displayed fairly high strength here. So first is community care facilities for the elderly. This would include assisted living facilities and nursing homes. It has a location quotient of 4.8. So again, pretty highly concentrated in terms of the relative numbers of jobs in Grimsby compared to what we see in Ontario as a whole. There would be 292 jobs in 2020 and then 6 establishments. And the second area of unique strength are child daycare services, which would be nurseries, play schools, preschool or pre-kindergarten outside of the elementary school system. It has a location quotient of 1.35 with 118 jobs across 17 establishments. So this is the area where we kind of see Grimsby's demographic strengths in those two cohorts, the younger demographics, but also the quarter of the population being above 60 and older, reflected here in these strengths. The sector also displays public and private sector employers, and there are investments like the hospital that might be able to be leveraged to attract additional healthcare supporting investment. And this is also loosely aligned to Hamilton's life sciences pillar as well in their plan. All right, and lastly, I'll be going over some potential growth sectors. So these are industries where we saw a location quotient being below 1, but above 0.5. So that would be an industry that's not yet meeting the local demand or the local needs, but has potential to potentially get there. So the 3 I'll highlight here kind of fall into the knowledge economy side of work. The first is other professional, scientific, and technical services. This is a pretty general industry, but would house employers doing things like marketing research, public opinion polling, photography services, veterinary services. You have a pretty wide swath of employers falling within this sector. It has a location quotient of 0.78 with 54 jobs and 55 establishments. And here I wanted to note that of these 55, 47 are self-employed employers, while 8 are kind of your more traditional employer base. The second growth sector is architectural, engineering, and related services with a location quotient of 0.56, 75 jobs and 32 establishments. Again, 22 of those are self-employed establishments. And then finally, business support services, which would house businesses like telephone call centers, business service centers, credit bureaus, collection agencies, any business falling within those types of services. They have a location quotient of 0.8 with 50 jobs and 13 establishments, again, 11 of them being self-employed employers. So these sectors have a pretty considerable volume of self-employment, which again is characteristic of the knowledge economy. All right, and the last 2 potential growth sectors I'll highlight here are outpatient care centers, which has a location quotient close to 1, but not quite there, 0.91 with 55 jobs throughout 2020, 10 establishments, 7 of which are self-employed, and then offices of physicians as well, which includes, kind of general practice, family physicians, specialized medical practices, anything within those buckets, with the location quotient of 0.62, 80 jobs and then 70 establishments, and it's pretty split between self-employed and your traditional employers here too. So again, we do see pretty high volumes of self-employment within these potential growth sectors. Providers are likely operating as very small businesses, and growing this sector might take time given the labor force requirements to work in these fields. But again, aligns to some of the life sciences and also investments that are going on within West Niagara as well. So in summary, just to recap, we are highlighting today some of the areas of strength, which include beverage manufacturing, an advanced manufacturing subsector, other general purpose machinery, full service restaurants and limited service eating places, traveler accommodations, and then the two subsectors that fall within goods movement. A unique strength we saw in the data was healthcare and social assistance, and then potential growth sectors were other professional, scientific, and technical services, architecture, engineering, and related services, business support services, outpatient care centers, and then offices of physicians as well. So we do have time for questions. Again, this isn't an exhaustive list of all the sectors, sector strengths and areas of growth, but some of the ones we wanted to highlight today.
Thank you for the presentation. I see that member Richard Dunda has his hand up for a question. Richard?
She already answered it, Dave.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
No, it's just showing your hand on the screen there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions to the presenter? It was I'll just give it was a fantastic summary with regards to the information that you've got us for from Hamilton and Niagara. I think that's great because we've had a lot of studies back over the years with GDAC, and I'm sure Ali can, being a longtime member too, can reference this. But I think this is the first study that we've actually looked into Hamilton's economic side of it too. So that's just my comments. So I apologize for jumping in on that, but I'm just the information is just so exciting. So okay, any CAO Schlang?
Thanks. I think this might be in the main report, but I thought I'd ask you. You show the, where people are going to be employed, right? Going out. Do you have anything that what's coming into Grimsby from the other geographies?
Yes, we would have those data. Yeah, I can double check whether that's in the report or not, but that is a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, can you just make sure that I think it's in the report, but I just going by memory. Okay, because that's important for us to know. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
I'll thank you, CAO Schlang. Richard, question?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I think this is probably a question for Frank eventually. Do we have data that says of the $1 billion in new building permits, what does it line up, or can we line it up to the sectoral information we just received, like square footage dedicated towards potential office space, so to get a sense of where the money is being directed so to take advantage of economic potential? So I'll just table the question, Dave, and then Frank and I can have or GDAC can deal with it at a later time.
It could probably help a little bit. As you know, the hospital being 200 million, so those professional services, there'll definitely be a link there, the health sciences. So we could maybe do a mapping like that, Frank and I. I think that's a great.
Actually, Harry, that was part B of the question. Do we have the hospital? So the hospital is probably the biggest, largest commercial property. All right. Do we have they anticipated what if the employee base is going to grow once the hospital is completed? And if so, is that another 100 jobs in the town? Do we know what is that projected yet?
Through you, Chair, the biggest thing is retention of the 300 highly paid jobs. The attraction is something we should work on with Lincoln, and Frank will be working on that whole economic corridor there. It also includes the high school, the new high school. So, yeah. So that's a great question, Richard. Maybe we could do a mapping to that $1 billion of investment. And Frank and I can work on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Not seeing any, sorry, I'd like to welcome Michael Marineri to our meeting. Good morning, Michael. Great to see you here.
All right, guys, back in the office, so I have to get used to transit every morning and the traffic and everything. So it takes a little bit to get here.
And an epic beard, Michael. Epic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm not seeing any more questions from the members. I just have one question. And I think the answer is with the information, and every slide showed establishment. So obviously for 2020, that gives us the total number, adding that establishment number up totally, that would give us the total numbers that we have of businesses that we have in Grimsby. That's just a quick question from myself. Thank you.
Yes, that is correct. If we take all of those across all the industries that exist, it would give us the total number of establishments in Grimsby, including both self-employed and your traditional employer, the non-self-employed employers. Thanks.
Great, great report. Ellie, did you have a question? I see your hands up there. Ellie?
Thank you, David. Yes, so we talked a little bit about a high level of self-employment under potential growth sectors for Grimsby. I'd love, if possible, to hear a little bit more about that. So how are the numbers that you saw for Grimsby? How do they equate, or how are they in comparison to Niagara and other places in Ontario or across the country? Are they good for our community? Is this an area that is a good area for investment for our community?
I think Thalia and I are looking at each other. Go ahead, Thalia. Yeah.
I'll go first, and then I'll pass it over to you, Vivian.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's a great question, Ali. I haven't looked at the comparison between Grimsby and Niagara region as a whole, though, as you know, that would be valuable, I think, just to see, is that something stronger in Grimsby compared to maybe other municipalities, or what we see in general. Then I'll pass it to you, Vivian.
Yeah, I think it's a great question too, Ali, and yes, we can quickly look up what the data say for that comparison. I would say in general, probably across Niagara, just like across Ontario, there has been an increase over the last few years in self-employment, and a lot of people, especially in work related to providing services and in the broader knowledge economy, have been able to relocate themselves and into various parts of the province and work as in consulting in a whole wide variety of different sectors or applications, business services. So I think it's a trend that is evident across Ontario, if not even across Canada and North America.
Sorry, can I ask the follow-up question?
Sure.
Do we have any knowledge or any data that supports whether this is a good trend or and this might not be for you, this might be to the other economic development officers on the board as well.
I think Thalia could talk to the data so much better than me, but I think it's an area where we're just starting to engage, particularly Statistics Canada, on trying to count these type of jobs far more accurately and think about their value. We talk about the gig economy, and we talk about people who work. These are good jobs. People who work in these so-called gig economy jobs will talk about having very good jobs in this area. So Statistics Canada is just starting to get its head around how that can be counted to add value to our overall kind of employment statistics. Thal, you might have some better detail than me on that.
Yeah, not a ton of detail, but I know like the industry codes jobs or employers are classified under, they get updated every so often. So you see some sectors starting to be reflected in the data more so than others. The gig economy is still a bit behind. We don't have a ton of information, but there's been a lot, anecdotally, many conversations about them. Finding the data is a little bit more difficult. But yeah, something amongst other things we like to keep track of moving forward as, you know, these conversations continue to happen. We like to have the data to put to those conversations too.
All right, great. Thank you for the questions. I'm going to look to, I'll go to the members first, and then CAO Slang, I see your hands up if you want to jump in and any response. Michael?
Harry, you go ahead. He's been waiting longer than I have.
Oh,
No. Michael and no, the committee should get first. This is
Okay.
probably last.
Go ahead,
Ali,
Michael.
I'm just going to add a point before I go into my question. The provincial system just changed how they register businesses. When you register a business now, you have to register a NOx code. And so once you get that code, they should start to leak out, if you have a service level agreement with them, some of that data on a sole proprietorship basis. So we should start to see more of that solopreneur data. It changed about October 19th. It took 30 years for them to change the system, but the new system's very good. So you should see more of that data on the you know, professional, scientific, technical, solopreneurs, gig economy stuff coming up and in the pipeline. So my question, I see a couple unique strengths here, and they have some high location quotients. When you guys did your LQ analysis, did you do the whole province? Did you omit Toronto? Did you do anything like that? Because in Ontario, if you tend to not omit Toronto, your LQ tends to be fairly skewed. And so when you do these analyses, I always kind of ask if that was done, because if you take Waterloo region and you do the tech sector, the location quotient is under 1 if you don't omit Toronto. If you take Toronto out, it's like 13. So there's a big skew there when you look at that. So I just want to see, you know, if that was taken into account here or not.
I believe it includes Toronto in there. Yeah.
Okay.
All of Ontario is the base we used.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the second question, like for strengths, you guys have movement of goods. Mm-hmm. That's a heavy land use industry. And I'd like to hear, you know, a planning department opinion on if that's something that we want for Grimsby or not, because truck yards, things that move goods, warehouses tend to be lower on jobs, you know, take a lot of land use and end up being heavier usages that people don't want because they cause traffic, et cetera, you know, with our on-ramps and things like that, you know. I don't know if we want to get into that, but maybe that's something we might want to take a note of when we look at things. It's just that goods movement always kind of scares me a bit, because you can't find a truck yard or industrial land for a truck yard between Toronto and London right now. So, you know, I just wonder, you know, if we can look at that and evaluate that, if that's something we want to have as a strength. I don't know if it's something we do want to have as a strength, but that's just something I'd like to hear from you guys on.
All right. Great
Did
question.
you want to hear something back
Yeah,
Michael, on
sure.
that? Or
Respond.
because I can give you some of my
Yeah,
experience.
great. Thanks, Frank.
Obviously, you know, trucking and warehousing does not generate a lot of knowledge-based sector type jobs. From my perspective, that's not the type of sector that I would go after for Grimsby. First of all, we don't have the land to accommodate any new logistical type of opportunities like that. I would go and identify more on the knowledge-based sector. We have a very growing economy in that respect, and I would focus on that. And as Harry said, we got over $200 million being invested in a hospital. I would focus on that sector as well, you know, the health center. These are jobs that are heavily intense, high value type jobs. That's the kinds of jobs that we need here. We don't need the high manufacturing, compounding, processing jobs. We just don't have the capability to account for that. Maybe Hamilton does, maybe Niagara Falls does, but Grimsby has to really refocus, it's sectors that we can leverage with existing businesses that are here. Sector, knowledge-based sector, from home, or if you will, the self-employed sector are key, the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of exactly what I wanted to hear. It's just like if I look at this, I would much rather focus on, you know, engineering, architectural, other scientific, technical services, and business support services as a big part of this, and that solopreneur kind of area. Then, you know, because I mean, like we do have great access to broadband. Like there's gigabit throughout the town. You know, supporting those people, I think, would pay off a lot more than some of these other areas. But thanks, Frank.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you for the conversation there, and I'll look to Richard. Another question or comment, Richard?
Not a question, but just for Frank's benefit, Frank, I work at I run an incubator in Hamilton, transportation-focused incubator. So I have some substantial knowledge of what's going on in Hamilton in the transportation sector, particularly in the knowledge sector base. So when we get a chance to connect, I can share that with you. Grimsby should be able to take advantage of some of the glow, or just the glow from what's going on in Hamilton. Funded through OCE, by the way. So I'd be interested to know who your friend is there.
Thank you, Richard. Harry, sorry, CAO Slang. I apologize.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the team. Ken really facilitated a lot of this with Ilya and Vivian, so I wanted to thank all of you. And one thing for the working group is that they've also in the report consolidated some of the feedback from the Niagara region survey that wasn't highlighted in the presentation on the pandemic recovery. And it is something we need to consider based on going with a shorter term economic development strategy. And we're looking at 3 years. So please take a good look at the report as you're developing that strategy. So I know you didn't highlight it, Thalia, but it's in the report. So, and there was actually a lot of participation by Grimsby businesses in that response survey. They sort of got burnt out with surveys thereafter. A lot of them did participate in that one. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, CAO, for your comments on that. And personally, I would like to, on behalf of the members of GDAC, I'd like to thank Vivian and Thalia for your presentation. Great information. So thanks again. I'm just going to, we have to pass a resolution. I'll read it out and look for a mover and a seconder. Resolved that the update regarding the business retention and expansion Niagara Planning Board initiatives be received. Can I get a mover and a seconder from the members? Ali and Michael. All in favor of the resolution? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it back over to Frank. Thank you, Frank.
Mr. Chairman, and thanks everyone for a great presentation. The next fundamental piece in economic development or economic development strategy is already been completed, and that's the BRE, Business Retention and Expansion Program or survey that we have conducted recently, and it was funded by OMAFRA. Now, this was initiated, I understand, in the second quarter of this year, and it was just recently completed. And there's been several presentations from Susan Emanuel. Susan's been a great leader in putting all this together. And thanks to Susan, we are where we are today. Normally, in an economic development strategy, BRE reports are really an action step. But in this case, Grimsby is very lucky to have had it done in advance because it provides an insight. It crystallizes a lot of information about what does business, what are the gaps in our local businesses, what are their concerns, and some suggestions as to what we could do as a municipality to improve our level of service to a system to create jobs and taxes. So the BRE report has a wealth of information that provides that kind of insight. Most of you have actually seen the presentation. But I can go through it if you like, Mr. Chairman. There's about 45 slides, or I can quickly talk to you about what are some of the issues associated with what we were able to find in the report. How would you like me to proceed, Mr. Chairman?
I'll I'll look to the committee, Frank. I know a lot of us have seen it. I'm just going to ask if everybody has on the committee has seen the report and has had time to digest it in that, or would you want to have Frank to do a more of an overview, or just let him do his what he's planning to follow up with? So I look to the committee. Anybody want to see the presentation again? Okay, I think we're all right. So Frank, continue as you are. Thank you.
That's what I thought. It's 45 slides, and they're wonderfully prepared by Susan and Rachel, and I think you'll see more of it as we put together the action plan for that study, which is almost completed, and you'll get the final copy, and I'm going to be writing a report for council for this committee as well to put it all together in terms of where do we go from here? How do we implement the study? But the high-level summary of the themes that were recurring throughout the survey were basically in about 4 or 5 areas that we really need to focus on. And these are not necessarily out of order in terms of, now I've seen this in many other communities, so Grimsby is not an anomaly per se. The first one was with respect to the council and the trust and support leadership and image factor. Now, this, I believe, is partially because of the fact that, Grimsby did not have an economic development professional to blend and to create a collaboration or team effort in the community for years. And, you have to give credit to this council and saying, hey, we recognize that gap and we are doing something about it. And we are doing an economic development strategy. We did a BRE and we did all this, and we have an economic development officer on staff. And their role is to help our local business community to expand, create jobs and taxes. So kudos to council, kudos to this committee to see that. Grimsby was one of the very few communities, if not the only community in Niagara region that did not have an economic development. So the lack of support for local businesses was seen by council, and they have put something in place, which is a great thing. But that's what the business community was suggesting, that there was a little bit of lack of support and leadership there. The other 2 areas were obviously in economic development, which we're addressing it as we go through this, and building and planning and zoning areas. Now, this is typical of small business or large businesses to say, it just takes too darn long to get a building permit or an official plan or rezoning or site plan agreement. And I totally agree. I'm an urban planner and I understand all that. And we have a planning act, we have a municipal act, but we also have the opportunity to assist businesses to expedite the development. Let me just give you an example of what happened in Grimsby just recently. I had this doctor calling us and said, we want to expand in Grimsby, but it's taken 9 months to get a building, trying to get a building permit, and we don't know who to turn to. For a building permit, just to renovate an existing piece of property, that's just too darn long. And my role is to identify those businesses that require assistance and work in collaboration with our staff to expedite. Not going against the jurisdiction of the Planning Act or the Building Code or any of all that, but just to say, listen, this has got a high priority for us in the community because it's creating jobs and taxes. And that's what I like. I like jobs and taxes. And so let's see how we can put it on top of the pile. So whether it was my intervention or whether it was just luck, but a couple of days ago, we issued the building permit. Now, I called the doctor and he was so elated, says, Frank, next time you have a problem, come and see me. So, I thought it was amazing that they were so impressed with the level of turnover. And this is what the concierge service is all about, in economic development to help local businesses that when they need an expansion, when they need a rezoning to accommodate for jobs and assessment, that's what we have to be turning it up a little long. So that building and planning and zoning issue, Harry and I'm sure will work very closely with Antonietta and the rest of the team to support it and move it along as best as we can. Other areas requested for improvement were obviously in the traffic area. I don't see any traffic in Grimsby, Mr. Sherman. I see traffic when I come to Grimsby in the Greater Toronto area, but there is no traffic in Grimsby. But I understand where they're coming from. The downtown core in particular, there may be a little bit of traffic when that happens. But traffic was one an issue. Parking, of course, especially in the downtown core. But maybe part of the problem here is that we haven't done a great job in promoting the fact that we have a lot of other parking lots behind Main Street. So we might have to just do a little PR job there, Harry. And obviously public transit, and I know that Harry with the other CAOs in Niagara region are trying to achieve a milestone here with respect to getting public transit from Niagara region to come to Grimsby as well. And of course, we have the GO Transit station that will hopefully be coming here in the next little while, and internet speed. Now, Michael was mentioning about internet speed being quite well here, but according to some of the businesses, they say that internet speed could be improved. We'll do a little bit more analysis on that, and I'd like to talk to Michael about it and our IT people as well here to see how and what's happening from the private sector and so forth. Those were some areas for improvement. Some of the business challenges that we identified through the study was the accessible workforce. This is not news for Grimsby. This is an issue with all of Ontario. And whether it was because of COVID, but even pre-COVID, I believe workforce development was always an issue. In our action plan that we've identified, this is a major area, and we will work very closely with Vivian and her team, and with our local business community and the chamber, of course, to develop a job fair or some other action that we can assist in attracting workforce development here. This one is mostly likely because of COVID. It's employee mental health, stress, support. And I think a lot of us have gone through that, and we're experiencing it, and hopefully that will change in the next year or so. But it's something that we should be aware of it and understand as we talk to our business community. Opportunities to retain businesses. Well, it's that BR&E support that we are talking about, the expansion and attraction. 90% of all the new jobs created in a community come from the existing businesses. So it's important to look after our existing businesses wherever we can. Assistance in promotion and marketing was another issue that was brought up. Marketing seminar was a request. Joint advertising, marketing, promotion, which I'll give you an example of that, and shop local initiative. Now, we know that Rebecca is, the Chamber is doing a major initiative in shop local campaign. The Chamber has done a wonderful job for the past 50 years on shop local campaign. And that's where it belongs. It belongs with the business community themselves, with a strong leadership through Rebecca. So I believe that's only going to be improving. And we as a town should be supporting all that, of course. Now, in terms of joint advertising, marketing, and promotion, not knowing what has happened in the past in terms of that, but just recently, with the Rogers hockey hometown event taking place, Rebecca and I and a few others in the town here were just talking about how can we leverage that opportunity. We understand for the next 3 days or the 3 days that they're here, there will be anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000 people a day coming through our community. There's a lot of hockey fanatics in Canada, obviously, and we want to take advantage of that. when they're here the whole day, are they going to stick around the building right behind me? The Peach King event, or do we also guide them to go downtown and have dinner, lunch, or breakfast, and or whatever? So that's something that we should jointly try to work together in sort of co-marketing, whether it's with the DIA, the chamber, and the town coming together and promoting that kind of opportunity. So these are the kinds of things that we should be looking at, and we're currently looking at it. And hopefully in the future, and next year is a 100-year anniversary, we should also see how we can get the business community to supplement our marketing efforts with the private sector. And the other issue was supporting organizations for improvement. And we just how we work with the Chamber of Commerce, the DIA, the hospital group, or the Niagara region is involved as a stakeholder in our community's growth. So the DIA, obviously the Chamber, and the Small Business Enterprise Center. If we have a lot of entrepreneurs establishing their businesses in this community, we should have some support from the Entrepreneurship Center in St. Catharines and say maybe we should try to get them to come here maybe once a week, and we'll house them in our town hall or in and say we have individuals that can assist you from making a small business. We have a series of workshops on how to help them with their finance or putting together a business plan for the bank and so forth. So these are the kinds of things, and I believe strongly. In fact, I was one of the very few people, that started the Entrepreneurship Center when it started way back in 1983. In Scotland, we started an entrepreneurship center. At that time, they gave us $60,000 from the provincial government to allow the small businesses to come and see us and provide them with all that information that's required. And that a lot of it can be done online, but it's also important to see a person face to face. So those are the main highlights of the report. We, as I said, which is to produce a some of the touchdowns that we can achieve in the next year, and that we get identify them actions in terms of who's going to do what, cost, what's the time frame, and what are the measurements associated with each action. So that's going to happen, and we will be putting that as part of the overall report that will go to MAFRA and council, I believe next week or so. So again, I really like to stress, Mr. Chairman, the amount of work that was done in a short period of time is incredible, and I think that gives kudos to this committee and the working committee that worked very hard in making it happen. Albeit it could have been a much stronger survey, but you know, there's a lot of survey fatigue out there and COVID and everything else. But you know, of the 72 people that did respond, or 72 businesses that did respond, that's a pretty good analysis. And it's given us good pieces of information that we can then take towards the economic development strategy. Which, you know, is, Mr. Chairman, going to start sometime in this year, and hopefully activate a few meetings with some stakeholders in the new year. So we'll have a few more meetings to discuss priorities, talk about goals and objectives and action steps and performance measurements. So we have done a lot of work. We are is the part of the economic development strategies. We have done what is known as the most fundamental area of SWOT analysis and situational analysis. And you know, thanks to Vivian and thanks to Ken and of course our team here, we have completed a major component. The second part of the economic development strategy is to put together the goals and the priorities and strategies and action steps that are very critical. And that's the fun part. So we will be completing that hopefully in the first part of the second quarter, and we'll be coming before council and this committee with a final draft of the economic development strategy, which will be done internally as opposed to getting a consultant to come and do it for us. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I think those conclude my remarks, unless you have any questions about the report or some of the concerns and some of the action steps that we're going to be including in the next little while. But that's basically it.
Great. Thank you very much, Frank, for your comments and what you've been, all the good work you've been doing so far, bringing up the good initiatives that are coming forward here. Yeah, this has been just a fantastic story. It really is, truly is. So I'm going to go to the committee for any comments, but first I'd like to welcome Mike Williscraft. Just see you just logged in, Mike, to the meeting. So any comments or to the report from Frank, our interim economic development officer? Any comments that all the information that was brought to us from Frank? Okay. All right, great. We just have a few resolutions to approve, just to cover all the presentations and all the information that Frank brought forward. So first of all, I'd like to look for a mover to the resolution be resolved that the presentation on the Niagara Workforce Planning Board update be received. I get a mover and a seconder for that. Richard and Ali, thank you very much. And have a vote, show of hands, to approve that by the members. All, and that is carried. Thank you. The next one is the next resolution is resolved, the mover and seconder I need, resolved that the business retention expansion survey results summary be received. Again, a mover and a seconder, please. I'll look to Ali and Michael. And vote on that, please, for that resolution. All in favor? Show of hands. Thank you. And that is carried. And the last one is the resolution resolved that the update on the project and next steps be received. And that was basically Frank's economic state of the union address for the committee. And thanks again, Frank. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Richard and Michael. And a vote to the resolution from the members, please. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda here is new business. Does anybody have any new business they would like to bring forward? All righty, not seeing any at this time. We don't have a date for our next meeting yet, but I'm sure with the information that Frank has brought to the committee and the work that he's involved with, so we'll be maybe looking in the new year, Frank? Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're looking in the early part of 2022. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Great meeting, great information to the presenters and staff and everybody for coming. I just want to make one quick comment before I call an adjournment here. As Frank spoke about the good work that's happening in Grimsby through economic development, and I also want to, and I'm sure everybody would agree with me, is include the good hard work that Adam June has also done for getting the ball in good motion here, getting it moving. So I just want to bring that up. So, anyways, could I have a adjournment, please?
Just one more, and thank you to Rachel from us here. She's done a lot of work for us behind the scenes, as Harry has done as well. There's a lot of leadership, a lot of work behind doors that is unrecognized as much. But I've recognized it by just watching them and seeing what they've done in the past several months during the absence of Adam, of course, and Susan and Alejandra and all the working group that have supported the committee. I found that very, very rewarding to see that, because sometimes, you know, having the experience that I do, I don't see it as much. And so kudos for Grimsby in working together like that, and staff, and thanks to Rachel especially, because she's still doing some more work on this project. We're not going to let her go.
I couldn't agree with you more, Frank, and
Thanks.
thank you for those comments too. And absolutely, it's all about teamwork. Teamwork gets things accomplished, always, you know, and that's great. So anyways, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and thank you everybody for joining in, and look forward to seeing you all, maybe in person, hopefully in the new year, at our next meeting. So great. Thanks, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.